Blood Omen 2 is a third-person action-adventure video game developed by Crystal Dynamics and published by Eidos Interactive. It was released in 2002 for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, and for the PC. It is the fourth game in the Legacy of Kain franchise, and it received pretty mid-reviews on release. Blood Omen 2 takes place in an alternate timeline that was created due to the events of Soul Reaver 2, the game we covered previously. In this timeline, after the events of Blood Omen, Kain creates an army of vampires and attempts to conquer Nosgoth. He then gets defeated in battle by a mysterious Sarafan lord, and then he goes to sleep for 200 years. Afterwards, he wakes up weak and powerless in a vastly changed world, and then he must gather allies and grow stronger in order to get his revenge on the mysterious Sarafan lord. Hello everybody, I am Reefroach, and this is the fourth episode in a 5-part series where I play through and review all of the games in the Legacy of Kain franchise, and boy, do I have some thoughts about this game. First and foremost, let's talk about the visuals. The graphics of Blood Omen 2 are pretty damn solid for the time, and so far are probably the best in the series, compared of course to the original versions of the games and not the remastered ones. The models are pretty good and the texture work is fantastic. However, I am not a massive fan of the actual character designs themselves. They aren't terrible, but they feel just kind of basic and uninspired. The animations are mostly pretty good, and I do want to specifically praise the blocking animation in this game. I like how it isn't just a static block, but rather you can see Kain raise and move his arms or his weapon to block enemies' attacks appropriately, which is a very nice touch. In terms of sound design, most of the sound effects in the game are good, and some are even quite satisfying, like the ones used when selecting spells. However, at the same time, some other sound effects can be quite grating, so I feel like the overall quality kind of evens out to be okay-ish. The music is pretty good, although the style is a bit different than in the previous games, and I feel like it's a bit more generic as a result, but still the music is pretty good. However, the same cannot be said for the voice acting. Now, don't get me wrong, the various performances in Blood Omen 2 are not bad, but they are also nowhere near as impactful, dramatic, or moving as the ones in the rest of the series. And in a series like the Legacy of Kain, which is known for its high-quality voice acting, that is a major step back. Unfortunately, the problems don't end there, because the gameplay of Blood Omen 2 is frankly an absolute fucking mess. Now, to be fair, the gameplay was never really the main highlight of the Legacy of Kain games, but in this game, it's uniquely bad. To start, Blood Omen 2's combat revolves mostly around blocking attacks until your rage meter fills up and then casting a spell that does crazy damage, and so on and so forth. This system is pretty boring because you kind of end up just standing there and holding the block button for a while and then pressing like one or two other buttons here and there. Now, to be fair, the game does have a pretty cool stealth system, which can make up for the poor quality of the combat. However, in most situations, fighting enemies regularly is just so easy that there is very little point in engaging with it. In the other Legacy of Kain games, the various puzzles found here and there throughout them were a fantastic way to break up the action, and it made them much more fun to play. However, in Blood Omen 2, the game's levels are absolutely filled to the brim with small puzzles all throughout them. As a result, these puzzles are, for the most part, so incredibly simple to the point where I found them absolutely mind-numbingly boring. And while the game definitely has longer, more complex puzzles in it, they don't really make up for the rest of them. I would also like to mention the boss fights in this game, because I actually think that, for the most part, they're pretty alright. I would even go as far as to say that some of them were quite fun. With that said, sometimes I had trouble understanding what exactly I needed to do in certain sections of these fights, but overall I do think that they're pretty good. And now we finally come to the story of Blood Omen 2, and this is usually the part where I would really start glazing the game and talk about how good of a job they did with the writing, but unfortunately this time I just can't. This is because, unlike the rest of the series, Blood Omen 2's story is frankly an absolute fucking travesty. The plot is incredibly simple, formulaic, utterly riddled with boring archetypes, and at the same time it is also just an absolute fucking mess. Shit kind of just happens with very little build-up and explanation, and Kain Kain is kind of just along for the ride. I mean, it starts fairly normal. Kain needs to gather allies and defeat the Seraphon Lord, so he makes contact with and joins a group of vampires known as the Cabal. But then shit just kind of starts to get goofy because they send him to look for some random magical MacGuffin that for some reason can just completely negate the power of the Soul Reaver. You know, Kain's legendary sword that can kill anything, and just so happens that this random MacGuffin is also somehow the key to destroying the Seraphon Lord's main power source for some reason. And also, again, for some random reason, one of your allies that has been beside you since the very beginning just randomly decides to betray you near the end of the game for no reason. I mean, look, I really don't want to sound like an asshole, but come on, you guys can definitely do way better than this. Overall, the plot is boring and nonsensical, the characters are weak and unremarkable, the writing, it lacks that dramatic Machiavellian vibe that it had in the rest of the series, and the ending is abrupt and just kind of lame. So, in conclusion, Blood Omen 2 is a pretty mediocre game, and while I was very harsh on it, this is because of just how much potential I think this game has, because it does have some pretty strong elements that are just begging for some refinement. And I mean, it's not like I suffered through this game or anything, but I also didn't really care for it all that much either. To put it bluntly, Blood Omen 2 is a very mid game. It is painfully average and unremarkable, and as a result, if I had to rate this game on a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate it a big fat 7 Seraphon Lords out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please leave a like if you enjoyed it, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on more game reviews. Next time, we're finally gonna round out this series with Legacy of Kain Defiance. See ya!